Hello, my fellow concerned friends, and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for showing up and watching and supporting me every single time I post. It genuinely means the world to me. And if you're new here, hello, welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for clicking on my video. Out of all of these other videos you could have clicked on, you chose mine, and I greatly, greatly appreciate that. I hope that you stick around, and I hope that you can get something beneficial from my content. And I think a lot of you will. I think a lot of you guys are going to be able to relate to what I'm talking about today. And I'm excited to share some information that I recently learned in putting together my notes for this video about what we're talking about today. Because to me, when I read this, it felt extremely validating. And I felt like I finally had like a name for the experience. So, kind of a healing moment for me recently. And this all stemmed from a singular comment I got on this short that I posted, where I showed a picture of myself before I was in foster care, before Christianity was forced on me, and then a picture of me in the depths of my religious psychosis, and then a picture of me recently. And essentially, all I was trying to get across with this post was how Christianity stripped me of my identity. It completely stripped me of who I was, and I felt like a complete like robot walking around, and that the real Danielle was floating way off in a galaxy somewhere, and that's just how it should be. So essentially the question that was asked was extremely thought-provoking, and I wish I had taken a screenshot of it because I saved it. Like, I don't know what's wrong with YouTube, but I clicked on the comment and I clicked save, but there's no way for me to save or see the saved comment unless I am just not very smart. But, if that was you and you're the one who left that comment, thank you so much. Very thought provoking, as I said in my reply. But essentially, the comment said something along the lines of, like, can you explain in more detail exactly how Christianity and being forced to be converted really like changed who you are and like what you struggle with, et cetera, even to this day? And I was like, man, that is a really good thought-provoking question that, I've not really delved into. I've definitely shared my stories with you guys, some of my stories with you guys about my experiences in foster care and how they have not been very good. But I have never taken the time to really try to sit down and be like, how has this actually affected me to this day? Because I've always been so like laser hyper focused on my biological family, which has been a lot to unpack. And I recently learned things about my biological dad that have completely shattered my worldview once again. But such is the way of life when you have parents like mine, right? Like at this point, nothing should surprise me anymore. So, in order for you guys to understand how dramatic of a change I had to make in order to be accepted within my Christian family, the church I was going to, and in the faith as a whole, I need to take you all the way back to the beginning. And no, I'm not going to sit here and trauma dump all of the horrible things that my biological family and stepfather did to me, tried to get me to do, hurt me in ways, blah, 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 because I have plenty of other videos on that, right? But I will just let you know it was not an easy childhood, not a stable environment. I did not have a good relationship with my mother, and I definitely did not have a healthy relationship with my stepfather. Dad in prison my whole life, my grandparents, I could keep going, right? So my home life was extremely confusing and extremely chaotic, very unpredictable. Me getting in trouble could be anything. Like what even was getting in trouble? I could breathe wrong and I'm in trouble. I could look wrong and I'm in trouble. If my tone of voice is wrong, I'm in trouble, right? So it was a very stressful environment. So I really found a lot of peace and comfort with school and being able to leave my house and actually go to school where I was around other people who were not like my family, and it wasn't as crazy and hectic and chaotic. And school was really where I learned how to like kind of like connect with myself, because I was able to meet other people who listened to different kind of music and dressed differently and had different beliefs and worldviews. And so I really started to realize at a young age that outside of my home, not in my home, but outside of my home, in a way secretly, I could be whoever I wanted to be. I didn't have to be Danielle under the confines of my parents or my family and their beliefs and worldviews and what they think is moral and not moral. I will begrudgingly always say that the one thing my biological mother always did right was let me self express, with the exception of when she was mad at me and thought that I was undeserving of self expression. But I will get there in a second, okay? For instance, I was dyeing my hair hot pink, the underside of my hair hot pink in fifth grade. And, at the time, that was like pretty edgy for a fifth grader to do. And then by the time I was 12, I had my lip pierced. And by the time I was 13, I had my industrial pierced. And for the most part, I was able to dress however I wanted, right? I was able to do my hair however I wanted. I was able to dye it pretty much any color I wanted, except my mom's like line was black. I was not allowed to dye my hair black. Although one time she let me dye my hair black blue, but that did not count as black, but I didn't say anything. It was 100% black, okay? She didn't really care for the most part, and I was really thankful for that because I never felt like ashamed of how I looked. I definitely was made fun of at school, but it never bothered me because I was like, this is just who I am. Like, why does that bother you so much? I was 100% into all of the typical scene things and the scene bands, emo bands, the outfits, everything. Although we are not going to name any bands because, well, y'all can do all of that research. This video is not for that at all. But yeah, things that shall not be named, but I felt very comfortable, right? Like my favorite YouTubers were like the Tabs girl she was seeing. She's actually who I learned how to cut my own hair from, as well as Amber Caitlin Beal. She definitely influenced me to pierce myself, which happened a lot throughout living with my parents and in foster care, including when I was living with my Christian foster parents as well, before things went haywire. But with as much self expression as I was allowed, my mother was quick to completely tear that away from me if she deemed something I did as bad or me as a whole as bad. So if I broke a rule or messed up or got in trouble, and again, I can't even tell you what what those standards are because it always changed, I would have my hair tools taken away. Like all I could have is a hairbrush. That's it. I would have all of my clothes taken away. And like I said, I was seen, okay? And so well, probably maybe some of you don't, but like I'll try to put up pictures of like what this scene style in like the 2010s was because I don't have like any pictures really of my style, but that was my style. The multiple studded belts of different colors, the high top shoes. I had every color of the rainbow and pants that you can think of, and the way that I acquired those was with my grandmother, and it was illegal, but it was a game she said that was really fun, and I got free stuff, so I never questioned that, and my mom didn't either. Anyway, she would take away literally everything, my makeup, my hair tools, my clothes, literally the things off of my walls, the things off of my dressers, everything in my dresser. I had nothing left in my room except for a bed and a pillow and a blanket and the clothes that she provided, which she would purposely pick out as the exact opposite style of me. So I was very seen, alternative, whatever. And she would pick out things like the velvet, like pink jumpsuits, like the zipper up velvet, and then like the velvet like track pants. Like, what is it? Track suit? What am I saying? I can't even talk. But yeah, and I was forced to wear that to school because she knew that people would be like, "What is she wearing? Oh my gosh!" And it doesn't match her hair, and her hair looks crazy because she couldn't straighten it or put hairspray in it or anything, all in an attempt to have me humiliated to teach me some sort of lesson. But really, the only lesson that those punishments taught me is that when I'm bad, I don't deserve to feel like myself. And looking back now at that, I see how detrimental that has been to me personally because I am definitely the first, well, it's me. I can only be the first in my own mind, right? But I am definitely like the first things that I will like abandon when I'm feeling really low or depressed and things like that is my self-care. Like, and it almost feels like I'm already so dirty. Like, what's the point? Like I'm already so bad. Like it's like self-punishment. And it really does feel like it started like probably involving things like that, just having literally my own things that make me who I am, my identity taken away just because somebody else deemed it as bad. It was just something that I became used to and accustomed to. And this continued into foster care because I remember in my first foster home, it was an emergency placement home. I literally wore the same clothes for like a week straight, maybe more. I can't really remember because my mom refused to give me my personal belongings, including my freaking clothes. At least this is what I was told. I was told that the only reason I got it back and as long of a time as I got it back is because my mother was court ordered to. And you know what? I believe that because why did I not get my freaking clothes and my teddy bear the literal day I was taken away? Like that's crazy to me. So I was stuck wearing like these like leggings, sweatpants sort of things and just a t-shirt for like a week straight. And all I could do is wear these PJs that were gifted to me while I washed my actual clothes every day until I got my clothes back. So yeah, I couldn't really style myself. I also didn't have any of my hair products. At this time, I had shaved my hair completely off because I was heavily inspired by Miley Cyrus during her bangers area during her bangers era. And yeah, I just was obsessed with Miley Cyrus at that time. And yeah, we'll move on. I said at that time for a reason. We'll move on to that later. But yeah, I still had none of my things to make myself feel like myself. And in this foster home, like scents were not allowed. So I didn't have my deodorant. Nail polish was not allowed unless like you were supervised and you earned the right to be able to paint your nails, et cetera, et cetera. And also, there wasn't a shower, so I could only bathe. And I was not given shampoo and conditioner. I was given a single bar of like that pear soap or whatever. So I just felt so like dehumanized at a moment where I feel like I should have been not pampered, but like given a lot of extra comfort and security. And as my first night ever in a foster home, and things just went downhill from there. I kept grasping at straws and trying to self express as best as I could, but given my limited resources, there was only so much that I could do. And there got to a point in time where my hair was growing out and I was kind of at that like awkward, like my straight hair is just sticking an inch straight off my head in every direction, like looking like that baby doll off of Toy Story. Yeah, and I couldn't get my hair cut. Nobody would take me to get my hair cut until I moved in with my uncle, and then his girlfriend was a hairstylist and cut my hair. But that was my last haircut for a while because I was then being moved, which was a Christian foster home. And this is where things get pretty real, I can't lie. So here's the truth. I was actually, in a huge way, excited when I learned that these people were Christians because in my very traumatized and confused brain, it's sometimes so hard to like look back on this stuff because like knowing what I know now, it's like I want to say, dude, are you stupid? But it's no, it's like, dude, this is really really sad that you were that desperate. But like it's like my own internal monologue of like my parents constantly echoing being like, no, it's all your fault, all of these decisions are your fault, when in reality I was just a struggling kid desperate to be accepted and desperate to feel safe and loved. So when I learned that these people were Christians, I was actually really excited because in my mind I viewed them as the exact opposite of where I came from. Not even just my stepdad and my mom, but my entire family, which there is so much baggage there that I would never even be comfortable sharing everything online because I constantly live with this fear of like, okay, but what does that say about me with some of this stuff? So, like, I'm not even just talking about my mom and stepdad. I am like my whole family. These people have got to be the opposite of my whole family. And if they're Christians, they go to church, and church is a family, right? And I had this very misconstrued concept and idea of what Christianity was in my head at the time, which I learned very quickly was extremely wrong. And I also learned very quickly that it seemed to be the different side of the same coin when I moved in with them. At first, everything was great. I literally thought that I was walking through the pearly gates of heaven and I had my mom and dad finally, and I would finally have a home that I could go back to for the rest of my life. These people even told me that they had like suspended or like canceled their foster license and then somehow, by the grace of God, divine intervention, still got a phone call, even though they shouldn't have, for me. And they felt led by God to let me into the house. So imagine in my traumatized brain, as a child who has not been wanted up until how old was I? Like 15, 14 or 15 when I moved in with them, I had been bounced around, passed around, told that I'm not good enough or that somebody would rather choose their partner over me, etc. my whole entire life. So to hear this and to think to myself, like, oh, God has to be real. I mean, it's the opposite of ever. Like, right, I just want to believe. And so I hear this and I'm like, wow, this is it. This is where I'm supposed to stay. And, like I said, at first things were okay. They didn't judge me for my style. They didn't make me feel bad for my style. I was going to a new public school. They let me run track. They also let me be involved in theater. I was making a lot of friends that I was able to, on a personal way, relate to in similar ways that I related to my OG friend group that I had since fifth grade all the way up until when I was put in foster care. And I started to feel a genuine sense of normalcy because they kind of let me just exist. I didn't feel like there was a lot of pressure. I was made to go to church. I did have to go to church, yes. But at first, I wasn't made to change to go to church. And then after a while, things started changing. And they changed so subtly. It started off with like comments about what I was wearing. And like in my mind, I was like, oh, we're getting to a point of being such a family unit that we can like poke fun at each other. That's how I interpreted it. And now looking back, I can see that that was just like the subtle beginning signs of them trying to show their disapproval for my lifestyle and where I was headed simply because of how I looked, the music I listened to, the books I enjoyed to read, the shows that I enjoyed. It was a very high control environment in almost an exact same way as when I was living with my parents. Like I said, like two sides of the same coin. I'm going to try really hard to not focus on any story times revolving my experiences with these foster parents, like on, specific events level, and just really try to focus on how living there really shaped my negative opinions on myself and my worldview as a whole. But just know that these people, specifically the dad, not good people. I have a lot that I could say, but we're not going to talk about that right now. So, like I said, all of these comments and stuff, they started really subtly until they became like not subtle at all. And that started happening when I began being forced to be involved in like the youth groups as well as youth outings. And I remember like one of the very first outings, I was gonna go dress like in my usual like outing attire, like Nike gym shorts and a t shirt. And I will never forget the mom pulling me aside and saying that what I was wearing was not appropriate. It was inappropriate and it could cause my male friends or the people I was trying to make friends with to only view me in one light and not my heart that Jesus is taking or chasing after, taking after. Oh my, I mean, I guess that too. She then took me down to the basement where she pulled out a pair of culottes for me. I had no idea what a culotte was. I had no clue what a culotte was until she held it up in front of my face and I was like, what am I looking at right now? Like it looks like it's trying to be a skirt, but it's also shorts, but it looks like I'm very, very confused. And she explained to me that this is like the peak of modesty, right? Peak of modesty. So that's what I would be wearing to these events. And she also made sure to sit down with me and have a long talk about language I could use and could not use. Like me saying, oh my God, wasn't okay. Even saying, oh my gosh, was not allowed. I had to say, oh my word, and like literally practice saying, oh my word, as well as like other phrases and stuff too. And I will never forget on my first youth outing, I was sitting next to some of the kids and something like made me really excited. Like this was my first time doing something like this. This was my first time like doing like I've been on field trips and stuff and like I hung out with my friends when I was able to. But this was like my first like I guess you could say like innocent activity I had done with like a big group of kids as a teenager. So I can't remember what happened, but I was really excited and I was like, oh my God. And everyone was like dead silent and just like stared at me. And I remember being like, wow. Like I felt so horrible about myself. Like we were having so much fun and I just ruined it. And like that's kind of the beginning of like where my self-esteem, like who I really felt about me, something that I had held on to for so long, something where like I was able to go to school in these ugly outfits that my mom picked out for me. And I was still so sure enough in myself internally that it didn't really bother me. And I was able to just put on a brave face and just wait till I could get my stuff back. But this time was different. It was like, it felt like a dagger straight to my morale, my morals, my morale. I don't know. But it felt like for the first time, I almost was like facing a mirror and having to look at myself and wonder, am I fundamentally evil? like at my core, is there something really fundamentally wrong? In addition to being forced to go to like the youth groups and the youth outings, I was also forced to participate in more church activities like bus breakfast and helping out in different Sunday school classrooms. And I was also forced to sit in the teen section in church during the Wednesday services. Well, I think if I remember right, it was every service, but they would have like a section in the front where the teens would all sit down and gather around. Now, prior to this, I was the backseat Baptist, okay, because I didn't want to draw a lot of attention to myself. I was not very comfortable. But the longer I was there and the more they forced me to do things, the more I conformed and the more I looked like everybody else. By this point in time, I had decided that I agreed it was a sin for me to wear pants. I went from being a scene alternative kid to fearing wearing pants because what would that say about me? It is a sin. God will be angry at me. And God is all I have. God is all I will ever have. Your parents abandoned you. And what is that Bible verse? I'm not going to take my time to look it up, but I know some of you guys will know it. I believe it's like Psalms 10:27. When my father and my mother forsake me, then the Lord will pick me up. I had to do whatever I needed to do to ensure that I would be picked up because I knew my mom and dad wouldn't. And it sounds so foolish saying it now, but again, I always have to go back and put it in the context of I was a 14, 15, 16 plus year old kid at this time, trying to make sense of what had happened to me and this new reality that I was forced to accept. I was surrounded by no one other than Christians, no more outside influence. I wasn't talking to my family. And actually, at this time, I was actually in the process of going to court against my stepfather. My conversion definitely did not come quickly. It was actually a lot of like outside influence, not just my foster parents, but also their older daughter who would come and visit occasionally as she was going to a Christian college at the time. And so then I was influenced by that. And I saw how happy she seemed, how stable she seemed. She got to go to college and she has a car and she's going here, there, and everywhere. And all I remember feeling is like, I want that. And all I have to do to get that is be good. And what is good is whatever the Bible, the church, has to say I have to do, especially as a foster kid, a sinner who has done awful, awful things, definitely not due to my trauma, but just because I am evil and in need of salvation. I felt like I had to abandon literally every single part of me that made me me, because if I didn't, there would be consequences. If I didn't, I wouldn't be worthy of support and love and comfort and a home. I wouldn't be worthy of salvation. Because we all know it is a great sin to listen to secular music. It is a great sin to even listen to Christian rock music. I will never forget a time when I was at a youth group activity and we were playing hide and seek in the dark, and I had the bright idea of climbing up into the ceiling, and I didn't know what a drop ceiling was. Found out that day real quick, had a pretty gnarly concussion and had to stay home from school. Well, I'm watching Glee on the couch because it's like, I grew up watching that. Like, what's wrong with that? Like, woo, I barely ever watch TV now anyway, because all I do is read the Bible and pray for my own salvation and that God help me not be led to sin and then ultimately hell and destruction. But I was watching Glee and the foster dad had come home early, which I've told this story before. I'm not going to get into it now. That was a whole creepy interaction. But before the creepy interaction happened, I will never forget that he looked at the TV and I was already trying to like turn it off as fast as possible because I knew that would not fly, but I didn't do it in time. And I will never forget how horrible he made me feel for watching Glee. He literally made me feel like I was watching like straight up on the TV in the middle of his living room. And I genuinely felt awful about myself. I know that there's going to be some people who are listening to this video and are probably thinking to themselves like, oh my gosh, like how easily influenced are you? Blah, blah, blah. That could never be me. I would never change who I am for. Congrats. Good for you, honestly. I was desperate. I was a desperate kid and I was willing to do anything I could to find a home, even if that meant completely abandoning who I was. Would I do that now? Absolutely not. In fact, I've done the exact opposite. I've abandoned everyone and everything who has told me that what happened to me is not real, what I feel is not real, what I deserve is not something that I should ever expect. I have done the exact opposite, but as a child, You've got to put yourself in the mind of a child who has never experienced love, and this is the closest thing to love that they've ever got. This is all I knew. And stuff like this is all a lot of kids know too. I was so obsessed with being as good of a Christian as I could be, not because I wanted recognition and praise from other people, but because I genuinely was scared. I was scared that if I did not give 100% 24 hours a day, that there would be consequences and repercussions, and specifically, I wouldn't get as many crowns in heaven. I completely stopped listening to music. I stopped reading things that brought me joy because I could be spending that time in the Word instead. I stopped watching my favorite movies or any movies at that, TV shows, because you never know. You never know what the world and Satan might try to drop in their like little breadcrumbs to destruction. I took out my piercings. I stopped dressing the way that I liked. I stopped doing my hair the way that I liked. I stopped doing my makeup the way that I liked. I really believed I had to change every single aspect of who I was as a person because I was just so filthy dirty. I was born the ultimate sinner, and not a single part of me left over was worth keeping. I had to completely surrender it all, abandon it all, and let Jesus Christ make me new. And what I regret the most about this is the fact that I abandoned my morals for acceptance. And again, I know that I was just a kid and I was traumatized and desperate and just trying to feel at home somewhere. I hate it so much looking back, knowing all of the times that I would repeat the correct answer and know that it went against my morals so much. For instance, on a smaller scale, I started attending the church's Christian school. Long story as to how that happened. Not today is not a story time for that, but it happened. That's all you need to know. I was in, I believe it was the Bible class, and we were talking about like the beginnings of the earth, which that was an eye-opening experience for me, having gone to public school my whole life and believing in just science. Anywho, I remember asking a question, and I asked about like, I think I asked about like cavemen or just like the early humans in general and in relation to the creation story. Because that, to me, right off the bat, I'm like, that doesn't really, you're telling me that we just, human beings, just like what I look like now, just pop, pop. I'm anyway, but I will never forget the entire class erupted in laughter and mocked me for I'm so serious, probably like 5 to 10 minutes straight. Because like I'm so stupid. She's so dumb. She really thinks cavemen are real. How dumb are you to believe in those kinds of things that have absolutely no actual proof? Don't you know it's the theory of evolution and the theory of this and blah blah blah. Only God is right. Only the Bible is right. And the Bible has been proven right time and time and time again. And I really was like, okay. I felt so small, and I didn't have the words or knowledge or capability to be able to argue back and show evidence, nor did I have anything on my person to be able to refute. Not to mention, I would have gotten in trouble. My foster parents would have been called because I am being more than disruptive. I am leading people astray, at least attempting to, and then what would have happened to me at home, right? What would have happened to me at home? So, on a larger scale, when it comes to more serious issues that I wish that I would have been able to have more of a backbone and say, no, I don't agree with that. Like, it just, looking back, it's like I so badly wish that I could just go back to her and be like, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. It's a trap, it's a trap, it's a trap. And it's so hard to get out of that trap. Now, let's talk about the Christian school for a second, because it does play part of a role in how I view style and self expression and stuff now. It really did affect me because our dress code was very strict. Your skirts had to come down to below your knees. Okay, you had to wear socks, and there was like specific kind of shoes that you could wear. Most of us just wore Sperry's because that was like the most safe shoe you could go with. But your socks could only be white, black, or like tan, or just white and black. I can't remember. I remember it being such a big deal, and I got in trouble for this a lot of times too, because I wore gray socks. Gray socks. And yes, they do whole uniform checks every day, which also, now that I'm saying that out loud, honestly is weird and really freaking invasive. So like they'll have like the boys in one classroom, girls in one classroom based off of age group, obviously like grades. But us girls, we had to get checked every single day, head to toe. We had to sit down, like kneel on the ground with our skirt, like to see like if your skirt touched the ground, you passed. If it didn't, well then you don't pass because it's clearly not at the bottom of your knee. If your socks are wrong, like it was like actual serious like offenses, like calls home, like you have to change and stuff like that. The guys had to wear undershirts underneath of their clothing. So I mean, obviously I wasn't a guy, but they had to check that somehow, as well as like belt stuff. Like the dress code was so extremely strict, and it also felt so extremely invasive that I definitely do feel like that definitely played a part in me being like, I'll just throw some clothes on because it doesn't really matter, because like what's the point? It doesn't feel worth it. Like, and so now honestly, I can't style myself. Like you, like I wear the same shirts like every single video, because I go to thrift stores and it's like I see other people and how they dress and I'm like, wow, that's so cool. But I'm like, I don't know how to find it. I don't have the time to find it. I like thrifting, but I feel like I can never find, like I feel like I don't have the eye anymore to put things together because it has been so skewed by the religion telling me that clothes are just that, clothes. You want to be modest in the way that you dress. And a lot of people, whenever they hear modesty and they think of dressing in religion, they're thinking of like, not showing a lot of skin. And sure, that absolutely definitely plays a huge part in it. But at least in the religious group that I was involved with, a huge part of modesty and dress was just not drawing attention to yourself. So you could be wearing like a skirt, a dress down to the floor that is not skin tight and baggy, but you're still immodest if it's like rainbow and like super frilly and it's drawing a lot of attention to you. So obviously, being seen, you do dress in a way that draws a lot of attention. And so, because it was so ingrained in me for years and years during one of the most traumatic, informative times in my life, it's like, although I don't believe that, it's like still like part of me is like, but that time is come and gone. Like it's too late now. That part of your life has passed. Me and my husband started deconstructing from Christianity when we were probably like 19 or 20 years old. And it was definitely more of a struggle for my husband because he was a preacher's kid. And a little fun fact for you, another thing that really like skewed how I viewed myself was, I will never forget, my husband had to talk to his dad before he asked me out, like asked me to be his girlfriend. And I will never forget my husband coming to me and being like, listen to what my dad said, because his dad essentially was like, I mean, go for it, bud, but just know what you're getting yourself into. Like, that's a lot of baggage. And like, I kind of chuckled with him in the moment about it. And like, obviously, we've talked about this since then. So I'm not just telling you guys for the first time, but it's like, now looking back, I'm like, wow, it really feels like all I will ever be to anybody is the foster kid, the baggage, literally trash bag kid. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, that was like really hard. And I felt like I needed to prove myself even more that I am not just someone with a lot of baggage. I am, but I had to prove it that, I am worthy of the same kind of love you can give your wife and your wife can give you, and I can give it too. And I deserve it too. Please give me a chance. You know what I'm saying? And so it was really hard. So when we deconstructed, which by the way, in case you're wondering why we deconstructed, number one, because of a lot of experiences we both had in the church. But number two, what really gave us this like ticket to freedom of not feeling guilt or fear or shame or even caring about anybody from our old churches or anything, because anyway, was the Epicurean paradox. And I'll have it up here on the screen in case you are interested. But that genuinely like set me free. Let me tell you, it set us both free. And since then, trying to find myself again has been a huge, huge struggle. I feel like the my head part is I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I want to get my eyebrows pierced, two eyebrow piercings, and I want to get my nose re-pierced again because I had them both pierced and then my nose ring fell out and I didn't have another one. So, but like there's a lot of stuff I want to do. I want to get better at styling myself. Like I want to, when I go out with my kids, I don't care if it's to the park or a grocery store, I want to feel stylish. You know what I'm saying? Like I want to not feel like, alt Adam Sandler mom. Like I want to feel like I have a style when I go out. People are like, oh, okay, like clearly like that's her style, not like top and then big t-shirt and gym shorts bottoms. Like there's nothing wrong with that, but that's not what I want. So it's definitely been a huge learning curve, and it's definitely a process that I'm not even done with yet, and who knows if this is where I'll stay. I had a lot of people like suggesting that I do like eyebrows, V bangs, and I kind of want to try that. Like there's a lot to do, and I'm realizing now that just because I may have missed, my teenagehood and trying to like, find those like solidifying years of figuring out your style and who you are into your adulthood, just because I may have missed that and that part of my life may have been completely misconstrued by brainwashing and fear and shaming, I have not actually missed that mark. Like I'm still young and I have a lot of time to figure out who I am. And if I don't figure out my style or even how to style myself until I'm 50, hey, let's hope I make it to 50. You know what I'm saying? Like I said in the beginning of this video, I did find something that gives name to this experience that so many of us have gone through, which I know I've talked about mainly my religious side of that experience, but I hope that you've been able to catch on to the fact that this has been an issue in multiple different kinds of homes since I was little. And that is because this issue is not confined to religion, to Christian homes, or any other religious homes. It's not confined to any one home. It is a system of control. And as I always do, I'm going to have this article linked down below. I'm not going to go through all of it because it is very detailed, very in depth. So please, 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 if what I'm about to read to you resonates, definitely go through and check it out. I will just be reading like some of like the main points of each thing just so can have an idea on exactly like how wide of a range this issue covers. And I am really actually glad that I made this video and I took the time to kind of like break down my thoughts and stuff. I'm really thankful for you, that person who made that comment, because it led me here. And I think that this could be really beneficial for so many other people. And also, maybe you guys seeing me, hearing where I came from and the regrets that I have, the mistakes that I made, and the wrong that was done to me, you can see that not all is lost. And there's always next hour, today, tomorrow, whenever you're ready. This is from youthrights.org and it's titled Parental Oppression. There is our word, guys. I feel validated. I feel like I can finally name it. And if there is ever a day where I can confront these people, which there never will be, and honestly, I don't ever want to. I honestly want to forget that they exist. I can look at them and say, what you did was parental oppression. I have to look at it because I actually forgot it in the moment. But anyway, here is what parental oppression is. Parental oppression refers to patterns of control, restriction, and harmful behavior by a parent or caregiver that go beyond normal guidance or discipline and instead interfere with the child's healthy development, autonomy, and well-being. While parents have broad authority to raise their children, problems arise when that authority is used in ways that suppresses a child's identity, independence, safety, or basic needs. This can take many forms, including overbearing expectations about a child's future, excessive responsibilities that interfere with the normal childhood development, emotional hostility, corporal punishment, manipulation, denial of privacy, restriction of friendships, control over money and work opportunities, suppression of self-expression, and rejection of child's identity or beliefs. In these situations, the child's life becomes shaped more by fear, control, and compliance than by support, guidance, and growth. And does that not pretty much exactly define everything that I have already told you? And once again, something I know so many of you can also probably relate to, because this can be happening in your biological home, a foster home, an adoptive home. It doesn't matter where you're at. It could happen anywhere. Now we're going to go through the different types of parental oppression. And once again, I'm not going to read the paragraphs under each individual type. I highly suggest you guys click on the description and go to the link and read it all yourself. But I want to go over the different types just so that I can really show you guys that this does not just, happen in homes like what I experienced. This could happen. It's such a broad spectrum. So I hope that if you've been struggling with your identity in a home that you're in, that maybe this video and learning about these different types can really help bring you some peace or bring it into a full circle moment of validation or, growth and healing and self-love and acceptance, because there's nothing wrong with you just because horrible people around you are trying to convince you that there's something wrong with you, okay? Number one, overbearing expectations about the child's future, overbearing responsibilities that hinder development, emotional abuse, corporal punishment, manipulation, and gaslighting, punishment for questioning, hindering education, homeschool abuse, preventing work and labor, limiting financial independence, financial exploitation by parents, preventing interactions with friends, restricting romantic relationships, unreasonable restrictions on leaving home, theft of child's money, parental identity theft, preventing access to identification and documentation, withholding food as punishment, violating privacy, device monitoring and restricting, property seizure, medical neglect, denial of mental health care, restriction of self expression, discrimination against queer identity, political indoctrination, sheltering from ideas and information, religious indoctrination. Do we see how big of a range this is? And even going through some of those, it was like triggering memories for me too. And I was like, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, I didn't even think of that. Like, for instance, like I knew that this was wrong, but I didn't think of it as like this kind of wrong. But in that same Christian foster home, the foster dad had like put like this monitoring device on our cell phones that we were not aware of, where he could like basically see everything we were doing, like in our camera, microphone, everything, without us ever knowing. Mind you, we took our stuff to the bathroom, dude, but you know, hey, and as well as like other things, like the money thing too. Like I'm looking back now and I'm like, okay, a lot of this is making sense now. And I hope that if you're listening to this, a lot of things might be making sense to you as well. But to wrap this video up, I just want to say this. I hope that after listening to all of this, I can show you that it's not too late to come back to yourself. You may have lived in a home where you were told you were evil, but I want to let you know that you're not. Even if your whole family is telling you you are, and you internally are struggling so hard with keeping yourself safe, but also sticking to your own morals, I see you. I highly encourage everybody to go read that article in my description, because I think that it could bring a lot of healing and validation to a lot of you, because it definitely did to me. But that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. If you stuck around all the way to the end, I know that this is not really my more focused on other people kind of content and more personal. I was debating on if I was going to post this here or on my second channel where I post like just more personal stuff. But, you know, I really do think that this is something that's really important to talk about that affects so many people in general. And I just really hope that whoever needed to hear this video was able to hear it. So if that was you, thank you so much for being here. Even if it wasn't you, thank you so much for being here and watching all the way to the end. I'm sorry, I'm not pushing you away, but if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, I am really excited to hear your guys' thoughts down below in the comments. And yeah, that's all I have for you guys. I will see you guys on the next one.